Good evening. Call to order, please, and ask for a roll call.
Board Member Whalen. Here. Ash.
Here.
Hoover. Here. Mitchell. Solwich.
Thank you. I'd ask for a motion for the agenda approval.
So move to approve the agenda that was published by the city and that was emailed out to us,
Yes.
dated today, June 5th.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It passes. A motion for the approval of minutes, please.
And we didn't have any minutes in the packet for this meeting, so there's nothing to approve there.
Okay.
Yep, we didn't have them done in time. That was our fault. We'll get them for the next meeting, so.
Okay.
I went back, I did go back and look, I thought, well, maybe it's me and it's not doing it.
Okay, that explains that. I just thought maybe it was me that did that. Okay, that brings us to new business, and our first order of business is to consider a request from Venkata Dankula, and if that's wrong, I apologize, on behalf of Prime Assets Investment LLC for a variance for property located at 501 North Jefferson Way.
So, Venkata Dankula, on behalf of Prime Assets Investment LLC, has submitted a variance application for 501 North Jefferson Way. The request is to vary from access drive and driving location and spacing requirements, which would not conform to section 135.14.4.b parentheses 4 of the City of Indianola Code of Ordinances, nor the zoning code. The proposed drawing shows the proposed site plan for the site with the variance request itself. There's an associated revised special use permit application that is agenda item 5B. That will be considered by the Board of Adjustment tonight as well. The existing building is a multi-tenant commercial building with current uses including a smoke shop and a restaurant. In addition, a liquor store is proposed in the future. This request does not conform to multiple sections of the City Code of Ordinances and Zoning Code. We'll just overview the zoning. On the left shows the subject property zoned for the C2 Highway Commercial Zoning District, which allows for liquor sales by special use permit. The right shows the subject property as having a future land use map designation of regional mixed use. This designation.
Excuse me, could you speak just a little bit louder, especially if people are trying to listen?
Yeah.
And just a tiny bit slower. Cause I gotta look and see that the C2 and.
Yeah. So the right image shows the subject property as having a future land use map designation of regional mixed use. This designation guides for uses such as retail, office, restaurants, bars, and other personal business or commercial services. So this is an overview of the site. The requested variance would impact this section of the site. Where they're requesting to vary from Indianola's access drive location and spacing requirements. In essence, the area would remain as is today if the request was approved. Staff is noting several implications if this area was to remain as is today. Starting with our first concerned area would be the spacing that's proposed. The minimum required by the city is 50 feet for East Troy Avenue. The applicant is requesting that the spacing between the access and drive remain at 0 feet. The second is
I'm sorry, you're gonna have to go through and show, I didn't understand that all in the packet, so the spacing between the access and the drive.
This would be the access to the property on the south.
Okay.
Part.
And the corner, is that what we're saying is because there's really no curb there? Literally, I mean, is that in my term? Means there's no curb there and so consequently you have access all the way up to the highway.
Mhm.
So our spacing requirements start at the end of the radius of the curb on the street. So
Right there.
where that, where that corner comes in, right where it hits and goes straight. That's where the spacing starts. So our code says that you have to have 50 feet of spacing between that point and any driveway access point from there.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
The proposal would also not maintain visibility triangles between the axis and intersection, which requires 25-foot visibility triangles at both of the intersections or drives. The triangles above are drawn up to approximate scale. So just overviewing the intent and purpose of the zoning code and the code of ordinances as it relates to off-street parking and access spacing and location requirements is to ensure that there are no traffic conflicts that would result in either congestion and or accidents. At this site, there have been 3 known accidents and crashes that have occurred on this stretch of East Detroit Avenue within the last 10 years. Of those 3, 2 of those accidents were related to improper backing on East Detroit Avenue. This full analysis is provided in the agenda packet for review by the Board of Adjustment. These traffic conflicts can arise and be present due to a combination of factors. In this case, there's currently inadequate spacing at the intersection. The proposal is requesting spacing at 0 feet, where the minimum would be required by the city of being 50 foot for a local road. With the inadequate spacing, it really does force a driver to watch for multiple ingress and egress at several points. In current day scenario, not only does the driver need to be cognizant of pedestrians and vehicles along East Detroit Avenue and along the sidewalk, but they would also have to watch for oncoming traffic from turning vehicles along North Jefferson Way from both directions. And in addition to watching those points, the operator of the vehicle would still need to maintain control of their vehicle. Without that adequate spacing, the operator of the vehicle would have to process additional information, which puts not only them at risk, but others, including pedestrians, for a risk of a crash or accident occurring. The other part of the request, well, in this request would to allow the parking to overhang onto the public sidewalk, which would impact pedestrian connectivity for groups including young children, persons with disability needs, and those utilizing strollers. As can see in aerial imagery, there are vehicles that are already overhanging and blocking the main sidewalk in this area. And then lastly, the concern area is also if the proposal was approved, it would eliminate an ADA accessible route and parking facility. The one provided is inadequate today, that's right here, is inadequate to meet current ADA standards, including the parking stall itself, the access aisle, as well as the route to the entrance of the facility. So this shows the proposed, well, the approved special use permit and site plan that was approved back in January 3rd. Of this year, which shows that they have that adequate ADA accessible parking spot, the access aisle, and the route that leads into the facility with the landing square. That's what we're looking for when we review sites. But as it is today, that doesn't meet that requirement.
That ADA today isn't because it,
It doesn't have an accessible route, so a person with a wheelchair couldn't.
oh, I just thought it went right to that sidewalk right there. I happen to be somebody that parks on that side of the street, so I'm just familiar with it.
So if you could go back to the previous slide for a second, please. So, see that?
Mhm. But that's the kind of the overhang of the building. There's like a sidewalk. There's a sidewalk there on the south side of that building, isn't there? Up right next to the
Yeah.
building.
But no ramp, and there's no accessible route, so they need the minimum.
I didn't realize there was a curb there or something. Okay.
Additionally, they would still have the landscaping there too, so they're not really proposing anything else with that. So just to overview the driveway spacing requirements, this just outlines the purpose of the code within the code of ordinances. So the code sections that are referenced are both in our zoning code, but then also the general code of ordinances that the Public Works Director would overview. So the first is the purpose, which just essentially says that driveway spacing simplifies driving by reducing the amount of information a driver must process and react to. Adequate spacing between driveways and roadways or other driveways can reduce confusion, decrease the potential congestion and accidents for both through traffic and vehicles using the driveway. The second code that's in the code of ordinances refers to locating driveways in areas that would limit undue interference with the free movement of road traffic and to provide the required site distance. And the last referenced code is that driveway spacing from street intersections and between driveways shall be 50 feet on all other streets. And this one in specific would be a local street, so the other spacing requirements wouldn't apply.
So I have a question. Is that 50 feet, and this is maybe a Charlie question, is that on all intersections in Indianola that there's 50 feet back?
For local roads, not the other types of roads, not collector or arterial roads. So it just applies to East Detroit Avenue. North Jefferson has a longer distance that would be required.
So it doesn't apply to, I'm gonna say side streets within Indianola. It does apply or it doesn't apply?
That's.
The 50 feet only applies to the side streets,
The
right?
side streets.
Basically, not the main highways.
Yeah.
And full disclosure, this is a code that was adopted probably 3 or 4 years ago now.
Yep.
So there's gonna be a lot of stuff in the city that does not meet this requirement.
No, but if somebody,
Yeah,
a number of people are now at the IMU building. Would park, or park right away to the corner, really those should be 50 feet back.
yep,
Okay,
anything new, yep,
anything new?
Yep.
And changing, got it. And I know you gotta start and stop someplace.
So now going into the zoning code, this is in our off-street parking regulations. So this outlines the intent of the article is to prevent traffic congestion and to provide for proper traffic safety by preserving the public thoroughfares for unimpaired movement of pedestrian vehicle traffic. The requirements in the article are minimum standards, certain uses, for certain uses, these requirements may be inadequate and may require a greater requirement for off-street parking and similar requirements. Going into parking area design, every lot or parcel of land herein after used as a public or private parking area, including commercial parking lots, must be developed and maintained in accordance with the zoning code, or can be superseded by sued as. Access drive and driveways are required to provide access to all off-site parking areas and to any garage. And then lastly, all access drives, driveway approaches shall be located and designed according to the standards as established in this chapter and elsewhere within city code. So getting into the findings of fact, all of these must be found favorably by the Board of Adjustment in order to approve of a variance request. The first asks whether a special condition or circumstance exists which are peculiar to the land that are not applicable to other like zoned properties. It is evident that the property can conform to zoning regulations and would not be considered unreasonable or install a hardship to the property owner to require them to provide these minimum improvements in order to ensure safety and wellness at the intersection on East Detroit Avenue. Similarly, they've gone through a special use permit process where they have shown that they can meet this code requirement. Additionally, there are similar cases within the same zoning district in which those property owners were required to make the same or similar improvements to address driveway and access spacing location standards. That includes 410 South Jefferson Way, which had a special use permit request approved less than a year ago to allow for a liquor store on their site. Their site plan required traffic improvement for their site planning and special use permit. Because the property owner can make this reasonable improvement and because there are no special conditions or circumstances precluding the lot from meeting the zoning requirements that are not applicable to other sites, including 410 South Jefferson Way, staff finds that this criteria is not met. The second finding of fact asks if a right would be deprived of the property owner that is commonly enjoyed by other properties. Staff finds that this request would not result in a hardship of the property owner. The applicant in their narrative alleges that they would experience a hardship due to off-street parking stalls needing to be removed and to accommodate code requirements. However, the site is meeting off-street parking requirements with the proposed special use permit that was approved back in January 3rd and is in fact exceeding those minimum requirements that were approved in that plan. Those stalls are adequate to service the site for all of the businesses that are located on and proposed and is not in need of any additional parking stalls. Likewise, the redevelopment of the site does not exclude this property owner nor other sites proposed for redevelopment or new development from requiring improvements to increase safety and decrease potential traffic conflicts. As a result, staff can't find that this criteria is met. The third finding of fact asks whether conditions or hardships experienced by the applicant are self-imposed. Staff can't find that this finding of fact is favorable as the need is not created by regulations themselves, but instead arise out of an action of desire from the applicant not to install the required improvements that were approved back in January 3rd of this year. The approved special use permit requires the site to be serviced by a minimum of 20 parking stalls and currently exceeds that minimum. The applicant would like the site to be serviced by additional parking stalls. However, they're sited in an inappropriate location due to potential traffic conflicts and visibility concerns, and no additional parking is needed to service the site in its existing proposed uses. And so with that, staff finds that this criteria can't be met either. The fourth and last finding of fact asks if a special privilege would be granted to the applicant that is otherwise denied to other land structures or buildings within the same zoning district. Staff finds that a special right or privilege would be given to the property owner that other property owners within the C2 zoning district do not have the right to, including other properties that have had similar special use permit requests and site plans. Likewise, approval of the variance would set a precedence for future redevelopment of existing sites by omitting improvement requirements that ensure safety for pedestrians and drivers. And as such, staff finds that the criteria for this finding of fact cannot be met. These following points to consider are provided in the staff report. It just goes over the special use permit that was approved back in January 3rd, what was approved in that plan, and then just reinstates the staff's findings for the findings of fact. And then just notes that deviation from the code would not be in harmony with either of the code sections, the code of ordinance and zoning code. For this request, staff is recommending denial of the variance request. If the variance were to be approved by the Board of Adjustment, we'll just need to have prepared to summarize for the inclusion in the meeting minutes its reasons to approve of the request. That includes findings why each finding of fact can be viewed favorably, as this information is needed for the decision order. If there's any questions?
The main thing is, it's not really because it has, yes, they do have a special use permit that was already approved, but really it's just the changing of hands of a commercial building, and any new commercial building would have to meet this criteria, correct?
The main reason that they're requiring, or the upgrades are required, is because they're in the commercial building they're adding that liquor store in there, which required a special use permit, which then triggered an upgrade of all of the site planning standards to it. I mean, there's a litany of site planning stuff that we typically look at on these things. We work with existing businesses a lot of times because there's a lot of things we just can't implement on existing sites, so we know that. But I think for this one here, we felt that the improvement and the lessening of that, or the increasing of that setback to meet current code was something that they could do. Obviously, they did do it with the initial special use permit, but then there was change of plans after that.
But just the changing of hands of a new commercial building doesn't trigger
No,
it.
definitely not.
I thought maybe that triggered it into then becoming code compliant.
So then to take it the next, maybe logical step, although certainly not wise step, would be if the liquor store doesn't exist, then would it be able to remain as it is now? Okay, so that's the factor that really is contributing to this decision. Okay, thank you. And thank you, Emily, for.
Well, then what, I just have that general question, then why doesn't just changing hands change the criteria so that as we need to update some things because of old code, that causes the code to change? Like putting in a retail, I have an example of a retail store going into a retail store, and there had to be a handicapped restroom.
Yep.
Handicap accessibility, or I suppose that's special
Yeah,
regulations
and
too.
that's the interior of the building, so in that scenario, I'm assuming there was a building permit that needed to be pulled, and because the building permit got pulled, that's then what triggers the interior ADA stuff. Our code has a lot of things that require special approval by either P and Z or the Board of Adjustment and City Council. And there's some things that we can just administratively approve, and there's some things that just frankly don't need any approval at all because they can go to an existing site. There's no remodeling that gets done or anything like that. Again, what's triggering this one is there is a process that is required to go through just because of the use of the liquor store. And that's what's triggering this whole process. So You know, at the same time, there used to be, and I think in this tenant space that they're going into, there used to be a retail shop in there, a clothing shop. If another clothing shop would be going in there, there wouldn't be any requirements that would be imposed on it because we allow that use by right, and there is not a special process you need to go through to get that use established.
So when does front of the building, along the corridor ever get updated to fit into the code?
It would more so be when there's a change of the use. So if they're going from retail to restaurant, so the intensity. is-
That's all it could go to is
Yeah.
retail to restaurant.
Yep.
Or
Yeah.
other types of
Yeah.
uses.
So on your question about the facade requirements, the existing building that is here today does meet our current facade.
Right,
requirements.
I knew that.
But if it didn't, you know, if it was just a metal building, you know, machine shed type building or something like that, that would also be something that we'd be looking at here as improvements on that.
Good to know, thank you.
Good. Thank you. And thank you, Emily. There's a very complicated thing here, and I think you've helped us to understand it. Are there questions or comments from the public?
Hi,
Yes, please.
yeah,
Come up. There's a
To the podium and.
podium right
Okay.
here and introduce yourself if you
Yeah,
would,
yeah.
please.
I am the person who requested this request. My name is Venkata Danikula. I am the owner and he's my business partner. He's the co-owner of the property. When we acquired the building, immediately within 2 months, we came to know that one of the tenant want to move on because they are out of business. And they had a 2 years lease still left out. But what we did was to honor them, and by looking into this financial situation, we let them go without breaking the lease, and we are using that as a option so that we can go and do something else. That is the time we triggered to us like why can't we put a new business there? So that is the reason why we applied for a special use permit for the liquor store. And then it was approved on January 3rd. So what we did was we took that same application, whatever the amendments that was recommended to both the tenants who are there right now. And we did not get any objection from the smoke shop, but we got a big objection from the Subway manager saying that, hey, Subway store has 2 different doors and all the customers who are coming, they use both the doors equally. So if we get rid of the parking lots on the south side, then you are going to lose the business. Then I said, okay, why don't we simulate the situation? So what we did was we blocked the 5 parking lots with the cars or with the cones, and we simulated for 2 weeks. And to our analysis, we found that there is a decrease in the sales for 15 to 23%, which is very big for us to hold on. So what we did was, okay, let's go back and apply for a variance to see what we can do. And when we look into the recommendations that were made, the recommendations are huge. They are very costly. And due to the security reasons, we understand we need to make those amendments. And we are okay to do the amendments, whatever, removing the parking lots on the Jefferson Way, because it's a huge traffic on the highway. But on the East Detroit Avenue, we are thinking, why can't we request some variance so that it can be kept as it is, so that I don't want to lose my business on the Subway. The thing is, the liquor store itself is very we have to put a lot of capital in it. And I don't want to lose money on one business and go and put money on another business. At the same time, if I start losing sales at Subway, I have to reduce my staff. That I hate to do that. That we hate to do that actually. That is the reason why we come to the Honorable Council. Can you consider our request to keep the parking lots as it is on the south side, which is East Detroit Avenue, and we are okay to go ahead and remove the parking lots on the Jefferson Way. And we requested a quotation for it, how much it would cost. It is costing around $20,000 to $25,000 for us, even only for the Jefferson Way to parking lot changes, which is again huge amount for us. But we are okay to take that and we are okay to do that. But this one we would request to go and approve this our change request for this.
Any questions?
I
Thank you for giving that real consideration. Yes, it's
Yeah.
very helpful.
Thank you.
And I do park on the south side, so I know what you mean, but sometimes it's because I'm lazy and it's easier when I go into Subway.
Mhm.
That's right where I order from. So
Any other
Thank you.
comments
Retrain
or
myself.
questions from the public? Seeing none, I'd like to call for a motion.
I'm going to have to move that we do not approve the variance after we explained what it was for the change in variance for 5A, which is the property variance for the 501 North Jefferson Way. I move that we do not
We deny.
approve, we deny the approval. Deny the variance.
Second.
I'm confused.
So really quick, let me just jump in. I know what's going on and sometimes our alternatives get it a little bit, but I always think it's best to make a motion to approve in the affirmative. That way, you know, a yes vote is a yes. No.
I know it, I was trying to turn it the other way.
Yeah, because it almost starts turning into a double negative and that does get very
It does.
confusing, so.
So having said that, can we ask in the future when the recommendations are for the third option, that they're framed in a positive way so that we don't
Yeah,
trip all over ourselves?
Definitely, we'll figure out a better way in the staff report to kind of say how the motion should be written, but then what the recommendation would be on, we'll figure something out.
Okay.
I move that we approve,
Yep, just move approval, simple.
move approval of the denial.
Nope, just move approval of the variance request. And then that way, you know, if you vote yes, you're approving. If you vote no, you're not
I move
approving.
for the approval of the variance request. I was trying to get it all solved in one sentence.
Right, yep.
Second.
Second.
Does that make sense? I just want to make sure. So again, a yes vote is to approve the variance, a no vote would be to not approve the variance.
So do we need to call that?
I still see confusion. I want to make sure that you're clear on that before we go.
We're gonna,
Okay, then yes, then
Yes.
that's fine.
do we call for the vote then?
If you don't want to approve it, you say no.
Right.
Whalen,
No.
Dash,
No.
Hoover,
No.
Uh,
Why don't you restate that, Charlie, so everybody understands why we do it that way?
So
Because
again,
it's so
yes, it's more, it's easier for record keeping and it's easier to get everybody to understand, but if you were to say, I move to deny it, then everybody kind of gets a little bit confused that does a yes vote mean I'm approving it? No, so we always do it and we always recommend you make a motion in the affirmative to approve it. That way you know a yes vote is to approve, a no vote is to deny, so it's just, yeah.
So before we leave this though, and I know we have another related one. I was impressed with how creative you approached this problem in terms of actual action research to determine about the parking spaces. And my heart goes out to you on the economic side of this. On the other hand, I would say our major concern, our charge is first and foremost, safety and security of our public. And while my heart goes out to you from the business perspective, I think we have a larger obligation to our public to be concerned about that. I just want to make that clear that we're not just dismissing you out of hand, but that's our primary consideration. Okay?
And we'll have people drive around the building and park on the other side.
Yeah, I wish. I have one more question. We got a similar request for, because we have a vacant spot. Two more people approached us for the same liquor store. So what should we tell them? Like should we tell them like we need to do all these things before they come and occupy the spot, or do we need to apply for another special use permit?
Give us a call tomorrow, we can talk about that a little bit more.
This is probably not the place, but call them tomorrow and it'll
Yeah.
be fine. That brings us then to 5B.
So this is the special use modification for 501 North Jefferson Way. Because they had requested a variance request, but they had already had an approved special use permit. It required a modification to the existing special use permit request that they had in order for both of those items to be considered. So we'll just get into that request. So Indianola, on behalf of Prime Assets Investment LLC, has submitted a special use permit application for 501 North Jefferson Way for modification to a previously approved special use permit. Special use permit currently allows for liquor sales at the site. The modification is proposed for a site plan and special use permit that was previously approved on January 3rd, 2024, about 6 months ago. The existing building is a multi-tenant commercial building. Current uses include a smoke shop, a restaurant, as well as a proposed liquor retail store. The proposed plan does not meet minimum improvements and requirements needed to bring the property closer into conformance with zoning code regulations. So this next part, we will just make some comparisons to the proposed modification of the site plan with the noted deficiencies in the site plan. So they're all outlined in the site plan. So the first would have been the item that the variance request was speaking to. So that spoke on inadequate spacing at the intersection as well as vision triangles and parking proposed to overhang the sidewalk. The second item relates to the ADA parking stalls that are required of the site. They are not showing enough that would be required for the site. From my understanding, they're required a minimum of 2. They had previously shown 3, but 2 is what would have been required for the site, with the first one being van accessible. And then with that, they would still need to have ADA accessible routes. So this is what that route would be into the facility here. And then these would service these sites right here. Additionally, the parking stalls don't meet the minimum required width, which is 9 foot. Remainder items include that they also have changed the proposed planting species on the site plan, which is important because what the planting schedule shows is that they have 2 overstory trees that they're proposing when the minimum required is 3. So those are the site plan deficiencies that were noted by staff in their review, in addition to those items that were related to the variance request. In order to approve of the special use permit, the following findings must be made. The highlighted findings are the ones that staff do not feel are adequately addressed or meet the findings of fact. That's 1, 3, 4, 6, and 7. A full analysis of these are provided in the staff report. And as such, staff is recommending denial of the special use permit as submitted.
So simplifying this, so everybody understands, 1, from January till now, we've taken out 2 potential, but 1 required handicap parking. And then made the parking on, oh, we don't know that, on the south side, smaller?
So the minimum required by code is 9 foot. What they have, so some of the stalls are 9 foot and then some of them are 8 foot and 6 inches, which is undersized for what the minimum is in Indianola.
Right, but there's also more stalls than if the first piece was not approved. That means we're back to the original, which would have fewer parking places, correct?
Yeah, it still meets our minimum requirements.
And our requirement is 9 feet. So it's back to the original.
The way, yeah, this proposed site plan would essentially make that back to the original.
So it needs just to have some changes. Yeah, I got it. Has to have changes to it. That was confusing in the paperwork that I read. But I understand now.
Yeah, so
And I understand then a handicap was taken off from the other side.
2 handicaps. So they're.
One required.
Yeah, they show one on the south side. It doesn't meet the minimum
That's two.
requirements to be a legal ADA parking spot because there's no access route from here that's provided for this to be considered as such. And then the ones that service the businesses on the other side, because Subway is the one that has the access off of the south parking area as well. The business didn't have service of that ADA accessible parking spot, so that's what was removed.
And I do have one more question then. So they could have 2 handicap 88 parking spots on the north side and none on the south side.
They could, yeah. It wasn't proposed in the original.
It was just that it was there.
Yeah.
But for the 20 parking areas, there needs to be 2 of them.
Yeah.
There's a total of 23. Got it.
Questions or comments? Any comments or questions from the public? Hearing none, let's move the motion.
Do you want any discussion? You're
No,
just trying to get more parking in, I would assume, yeah.
No, the same thing goes like the variance request on these are most of both the same.
Yes.
So I think I understood the concerns that, you are having.
Mhm.
I would still urge, if there is any way you can get some lenience on the parking lots on the south side, we really appreciate it. And it will encourage us to go and invest more here in the community because again, I told you, I don't want to lose on one business and invest on another business.
Correct.
And it cannot create any opportunity here for the employees or anywhere the revenue to the community. So I would still request, some lenience on it.
Yep.
We understand.
that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Call the motion, please.
How about this? I move to approve this motion.
Second.
Right, call a vote?
Wayland,
No.
Cash,
No.
Hoover,
No.
So and just to note on that one, so this specific request, not approved, but the one that was approved back in January still does apply.
It still does,
Yeah.
still does.
So I just want to be very clear on that.
Clearly.
And of those 3 ADA parking, 2 are required. So 2 could be on the north side if you didn't want to change the entryway for the one that maybe is non-compliant on the south side, correct? Yeah, that's something that they could figure out.
Okay.
Thank you. That was confusing.
Thank you. That brings us to our third item, which is to consider a request from Brenda Wickett for variance for property located at 1006 East Salem.
And you guys can go if you want to. You
Thank
don't
you.
have to.
Yeah.
Brenda Wickett is requesting a variance for property at 1006 East Salem Avenue. The request is to vary from accessory structure size and height requirements and allow for an accessory structure that is 1,824 square feet in size and 24 feet tall. The proposal would not conform to section 165.04.2.e parentheses 1 of the zoning code. The applicant is proposing a 38-foot by 48-foot accessory structure which would equate to 1,824 square feet in size and would be 24 feet tall. The proposed structure would exceed the size of the principal structure, which is 680 square feet in size, by nearly 3 times. The structure is also proposed to be taller than the height of the principal structure and would potentially be visible from East Salem Avenue. So this shows the dwelling, the house that currently exists on the lot, and then this outline shows the proposed location of that accessory structure. Setbacks are shown 5 feet from the north property line, 5 feet from the west property line, and then 10 feet away from the house. The following image shows the proposed accessory structure elevations. And then this gets into the zoning code that is related to this request, which states that accessory buildings and structures shall not occupy more than 10% of the total lot area, nor exceed a total square footage of 1,800 square feet. And then the second code section states that accessory buildings and structures shall not be taller nor encompass more floor area than the principal structure that is located on the same lot, and shall in no case be more than 1 1/2 stories in height, and shall not exceed a height of 24 feet. So in summary, the request doesn't comply with the following. The structure would exceed 10% of their lot area. The structure would exceed the ground floor elevation of the principal structure by nearly 3 times, and the structure would be considered taller than the principal structure. Now to overview the findings of fact, all of these need to be found favorably for approval. The first finding of fact asks whether special conditions or circumstances exist which are peculiar to the land that are not applicable to other like zoned properties. With this request, staff can't find that there are any special conditions or circumstances for the lot that would impact the need for an oversized structure. Likewise, the size, scale, and massing of the structure is abnormal in what a neighborhood could expect in this zoning district, and as such, staff finds that this criteria is not met. The second finding of fact asks if a right would be deprived of the property owner that is commonly enjoyed by other properties. Denial of the request would not result in a hardship of the property owner. And the denial of the request would not preclude the property owner from building an attached garage or an addition to the house or a smaller accessory structure. As such, staff finds that this criteria is not. The third finding of fact asks whether conditions or hardships experienced by the applicant are self-imposed. The applicant is requesting the variance out of desire rather than a need, and alternatives do exist for the property owner, such as building an addition to the house, providing an attached garage, or building a smaller accessory structure that fits the character of the neighborhood. And as such, staff can't find that this finding of fact is met. The fourth and final finding of fact asks if a special privilege would be granted to the applicant that is otherwise denied to other land structures or buildings within the same zoning district. If granted, a right or special privilege would be imposed that other properties in the zoning district do not have. And approval of this variance would set a precedence that would apply to other properties within the R1 zoning district. So as such, staff can't find that this criteria for this finding of fact can be met. The following points to consider are provided in the staff report. It just reinstates each of staff's findings of the finding of fact. Staff is recommending the denial of the request. If it were to be approved, just ensure that you're preparing for the minutes your reasons to approve of the request, including why each finding of fact can be viewed favorably.
Any questions, comments? Okay, someone from the public want to speak to this? Introduce yourself, please.
I am Jody Barden, and my mom and dad live at 1007 East Ashland. And I'm here representing them because my dad went through a major surgery, so my mom somebody has to be there with him at all times to get around. So I'm representing them. And
I'm Amanda Schuff. My grandma is 1009 East Ashland. I'm representing her. She literally can't drive, so I'm here for her. She's the property directly behind them. And they're the property, like if you're looking from Ashland.
or if you pull the picture back up, that you
Yeah.
had up, we can show you where we are. Okay, so
We have the little garage with the tree
this
and
is
there.
my mom and dad, and this is Amanda's grandma.
And then I actually live across the street at 1100 East Ashland. You
Right.
just can't see me on this part of the zoning map.
So, I'm here fighting this for several reasons. One, the house is inhabitable and it has not been occupied for years.
You mean to say it's uninhabitable?
Yeah. You
No,
can't live in it.
no.
Nobody has
It's
lived in it.
inhabitable and uninhabitable both. It has not been lived in the last at least 3 years. My brother used to know the lady who was renting from them. It's often not maintained. They actually recently just mowed we like to mow our yard on our side on Ashland. And I would say that's probably the first or second time this year that they have mowed, and everyone else mows probably 4 times a week on our side. And then it's also just, no one's ever there. So if there's this large structure, we're right by the high school.
Okay.
My thing is high school students are high school students. There's gonna be a large unoccupied structure 99.9% of the time.
Because they want to put this up. They've told many of the neighbors that they want this to literally be like a party house. They have a large family that likes to get together. They like to play loud music and drink. Well, this is a neighborhood. My mom and dad are one of 2 of the last in this neighborhood.
And Miss Miller across the street.
Oh, yeah, Miss Miller. And everybody else is young families coming in with their children. She just had a new baby.
Yeah,
So we gotta worry about loud music all hours of the night. We've got to worry about where they're going to be parking, if they're driving up and down the streets, drinking or not drinking.
I also don't know if this was part of their variance request, but they had asked to buy the back alleyway or obtain it in some way, which is, I think, how they used to maintain the electrical lines, like the electrical poles used to be on the backside of the houses. So they want that, from my understanding, to be able to drive from the street and use it as parking also.
Yeah, right, Rocket, because they actually tried to get some of Nancy's, they offered to cut down a tree, which entailed in them trying to get actually more of her land than the alley. And one of the city council members and the mayor went over and talked to Nancy last summer and told her not to let them do this.
Yeah, so my
So she
grandma,
got the whole alley, but her grandma did not.
yeah, so my grandma she's older. She has Meniere's disease. She doesn't always, if you give her a zoning map, she can tell you what house is hers, but she probably couldn't tell you where her lot line is. We've lived there, I'm 28, 20 years probably she's lived there. Like since I was a little kid, her parents have lived there even longer. There's just a lot of concerns with a large, massive building, nobody lives there right now. You can drive.
Yeah, the house is inhabitable. I don't believe there's any electric on at that house. And I know that there's no gas at that house because there was no furnace on for the last couple of winters. I maintain my mom and dad's yard. I maintain their house. I'm down there a lot because of what's going on with my father. There last summer, there was break-ins when the whole alley situation going on, our neighbors, somebody came from their house, actually, down their driveway into the alley behind my mom and dad's house and went over to the neighbors and broke into the garage and stole all of his yard equipment, and it was expensive stuff, and nobody's seen a thing. You put a big structure up there, we're gonna have a lot more problems. You know, this is a nice neighborhood. It has been a well-maintained neighborhood. And the part that bothers me the most is that Becky told some of the neighbors that one way or another, she will get around all of this. Well, I want to bring it to your guys' attention before this is even consideration that she has several other properties here in Indianola that you guys are going out and having to get on her to maintain those properties. If they have money to go build this building, but do nothing with this house in a family-oriented neighborhood, why aren't you guys asking them to tear down this stuff that's unsellable? They have tons of it, and you guys are going out there at least every month to make sure that things are cleaned up, picked up, because all the neighbors are complaining. Why add another nuisance in a good neighborhood?
So for clarification, that's not our domain, okay?
Okay,
That's not what we do.
no, I know.
I understand you're talking, well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, take it all out on him, okay?
Because we were told along the
He's
way,
got big shoulders, but I understand it, but please understand that not the board's.
but we were also told that they would never be allowed to build anything bigger than the house. And I've been here several times with the same complaint. That house is not lived in, could not be lived in.
I think the garage was torn down last summer or the summer.
2 summers ago.
2 summers ago now, yeah. Because it was literally like falling down.
Sure.
And some of that's, Indianola is an older, it's not the newest neighborhood we didn't get our houses 2 years ago, last summer,
Right.
some of it's not everyone can maintain property, that sort of thing, but what's concerning especially is there's a bunch of construction going on at the high school. This is gonna be another huge nuisance, and not only that, how is it gonna affect everyone else's property taxes in this area? How is it gonna affect their insurance? And does, that sort of thing, my grandma's older on a fixed income, her parents are in the same boat, and a lot of the neighbors that we've talked to, we ran into the issue, they would have come, but a lot of them are renters. The people on one side of them are actually on vacation right now.
Which I think that my mom kind of felt intimidated by Brenda Wickett last year over this whole alley thing, because she just kind of told my mom, just sign it. And I'm like, why would you sign something without me being there? I said, don't do something because somebody tells you to. Well, I've been down here, Charlie can tell you, fighting for the alley, and now I'm going to fight hard for this not to go up, because who wants 24 feet?
That's larger
In
than
their backyard.
every house
And the
that,
house is unlivable.
Well, thank you for this is all worthy stuff. We're taking it into consideration. I'm sure.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments, questions? Hi there.
Hi, I am Brenda Wickett. So I guess I was not expecting I was going to give you my facts. But I am going to respond to some of the stuff that was said, and you kept saying that's not about this. But I do want you to know a couple things, according to what they said. The Salem house is vacant. Okay. Alice Brito was our tenant. She died in April of 2022. Her brother emptied the house. And when he emptied the house, then it became empty for us to decide what we wanted to do. I'm not gonna give anybody a pity story. My mom died in December of 2022. You're right, my husband was diagnosed with cancer last August. You know, they're not wrong. The house has been sitting there, but you know what's more important? Sorry, just gonna say, the house was not vacant. It was vacant, but for a reason, because last thing we was concerned about was an empty house. The utilities are on. The city can look it up. The utilities are on. The gas bill, I pay the gas bill every month. I pay the electric bill every month. So it does have utilities. And it is sitting there empty because we have been, I mean, in the meantime, we've taken down 3 trees. We've took the stumps out. We've took the garage that was falling apart. I'm not gonna speak ill of the dead. Alice was a hoarder, but she was also on a housing program. So for them to say property's never been taken care of. Okay, it's on a housing program. It was inspected every 2 years by the housing. So enough of that, okay? Now I'm gonna go back to what we're here for, okay? So I'm going to pass a paper out for you guys. And you all can look at it. And I'm not gonna put the city down or Emily down. I'm not a lawyer and I don't know legal stuff. I was told to do this application and I did. And it said, explain why. So I wrote a letter and you guys have that letter. Then I got told that's not what that means. There's 4 things on that thing that I had to respond to. Sorry, but you read them. Again, I'm not a lawyer. It's legal mumbo jumbo. My daughter's an engineer. My daughter read them. She answered them because I don't know what it meant. I don't want to fight with anybody. I just want to show you why we're here. I do apologize. The little one that's on the thing was an old one that we had to try to draw a shed and it's pretty crappy. It's very bad. So this just shows you, if you open this up, it shows you, and I got one for Charlie. And is there 2 more people on the?
Yeah, they're not here
He's not
tonight.
here.
Okay.
So just give us one.
It-
For our record.
It just shows, and I'm just trying to show you what this is about. It just shows the actual lot. Everybody's neighboring. I put numbers on them so you could read. And what it's boiling down to is that I'm not asking for anything special. My paper shows this is how much living square footage space I have. And then you go around the following neighbors and I have these 2 that are here, they're on there. I have the ones next door to us, and I just went around a circle to show. And it's nobody's fault. I literally have 680 square foot. That's all I have. And you're not wrong that, yeah, Emily, you could go in and dig a basement and do this and this, but it's atrocious money. I've already done the math. So my husband and I, we have a car we drive. He has a truck he drives. I have a vehicle I drive. Then we have a snowplow truck and we have an antique vehicle. I'm gonna have to put plow truck outside because I can't even get, and if you took my 680 and you had a basement under it, it'd be a family room. But I don't have that. I'd have to dig a basement to build. So what our intent is, and I might be wrong on one thing. So the variance I was told had to be, once you go beyond your house size, which my house is this big. Once you go beyond that, you have to get a variance. That's what I was told. Did I misread this?
Yeah,
So I had to get a variance. So if you stay within, there's a variance and then there's a bigger variance. As long as you stay in, and I was wrong, my math is wrong. As long as you stay in 1,824 feet. I'm not sure it's gonna be 24 feet. I thought I had to get a variance. To be honest with you, we're talking about stair step in the building so that this tight side's taller so you can put a motor in, but then it comes down, so then it heats the house because we have such a small house. I mean, I'm trying to do this where it doesn't look out of place. If you look at the drawing I gave you, to be honest with you, there is.
Okay.
If you look in the back, I mean, we have. If somebody's saying, well, it's too tall and it's gonna cause a problem for them, I really don't understand, because on their side, they have houses and garages, they have yard, and then they have more yard, I have yard, so the building itself, I don't see where it's gonna cause an issue for anybody. If I took and did the math for you, and I shouldn't have to, because you guys aren't silly, but if I need a single small car garage like they have, it's 308 square feet, and you can hardly park a car in, okay? So in order to get 3 cars in there, that's 900. And if you add that with the basement, it's just, I'm not out of realm of what I'm trying to get. If you don't want it that high, that's fine. I'm just trying to get a storage space for my cars and to be able to have a family dinner. And that is all this is about. I'm not gonna go into the fact, you can sit and smack talk all you want. I'm not gonna smack talk back with you.
No, I was, actually, I was
Okay,
just.
hold on. We're not doing
Okay.
that.
Yes.
The last meeting, she made a couple comments. Sam House is vacant. No, it's not. I mean, it is, but for a reason. Party House, last meeting, I looked at the meeting and, it doesn't matter. I'm telling you what I'm here for. And that's all that should matter. And if you guys don't think that it's deserved, that's fine, but I'm telling you why.
So
I'm not asking for special privileges.
correct. So this body has spoken already. Emily's presentation speaks to 4 criteria. And each of those criteria are very specific about the limitations that are allowed. And so in those, what you've proposed, as she's pointed out, I think the language says, has exceeded those expectations by serious numbers.
Okay, so the first one was, she said,
I can pull them up.
the
Yeah,
first one, my comment would be, others do have it in this town.
That, I will tell you that if it's happened before these standards were put in place, we can't do anything about that.
No, there's several new garages here in town that,
I understand that, but I'm just saying that our job is not to go around the city to.
no, I understand. What I'm saying is answering her 4 criteria was what you said. You're way over every one of them. Well, the first and last one are the same thing, if you ask me. That I'm asking for something other people don't have. Well, I'm not, because other people do have it. I guess I don't understand the legality of it here. Go to the first one.
So this is the first finding of fact that special conditions or circumstances exist which are peculiar. So essentially, you'd have to have something on your site that is abnormal to other properties or buildings or structures.
Okay. I understood that. So what is abnormal? My house compared to everybody around that neighborhood. That's abnormal. My house is so small. It's not your fault. It's the house that,
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Sure.
so that's abnormality to me is my house is abnormal because it's very, very small. So go to the second.
We'll get to you.
Okay.
These
Right, however, but let's go back to what the code is. The code is for a building. It can't be taller than the existing, because this is a garage. It can't be taller than the house, correct? Can't be larger than the house. Can't be in the front yard. Has to have paved driveway all the way to it. Am I missing another piece to it?
And it can't be more than 10% of the total.
Total,
Right.
of the total lot.
Of the
Can't be
total lot.
more than 10% of the total lot. So,
Which the lot square footage would be 9,000, if I can remember.
Yes, 9,000.
But I get to add in my alleys now, which is 1,700 and something.
I have to look at what that was. I'll keep on looking at that really quick.
But that, I mean, those are the criteria that we have to go by.
Right, and I thought, and this, like I said again, is why, maybe I misunderstood, but yes, it can't be, and that is why you come for a variance, am I wrong? That's the rules, you're correct, totally
Okay.
correct, and every rule is fine, except for the one that is, can't be bigger than my house. I have all the other ones covered, but the house, that's why I'm here, it can't be bigger than my house, and that's why I'm here. I don't have a house that's big enough to build a garage that I can park my cars in and have storage. I mean. Am I?
No, can't be bigger than your house, can't be more than,
10%.
I'll say 900. Now he finds the number, so it could be 1,000 square feet. 1,000 square feet can't be taller than the height of your house. And we have got to the, they haven't set it in there yet, but then it has to have pavement all the way back to it.
Right, but
And that's-
all of that that's the rule.
That's
And if
fine.
you need more than that, you go get a variance. I guess that's why I'm.
That's what some of this criteria is. So you haven't met that criteria. That's why they're saying that criteria was not met.
I understand that, but again, I'll ask the same question over. So I knew what I need doesn't meet the criteria. So then you go ask for a variance.
Correct.
Okay, I should just make sure I'm getting confused here.
No, you're entirely right about that.
And that's why we're here.
And we use the guidelines to make an informed decision in that regard. We're not inflexible, but there are limitations in terms of what we would think of as common practice and what's acceptable under the circumstances.
No, and I get that. So I don't have to have 24 foot. I went off of,
We can only go by what's presented to us.
That's right.
oh, now I wasn't told that. I said, this is not a one-time deal. You can come in and talk. So that's not what.
No, but you can talk to us, and explain your opinion, but we go by what's presented to us.
Can't be. It can't be taller than the house.
No, variance wise, it can't be taller than 24 foot.
And then it's just common sense. So it makes perfect sense that you wouldn't want something that's taller than the house. And that's why it's there.
Yeah, first of all, the alley stuff, it is 1,700.
64 or something.
I don't have the exact, because the
So that's
website
another
doesn't have it on there,
100
so I
feet.
measured it, it's 1,700, yeah, give or take.
So yes, I am just trying to get a variance that I can build a garage, that I have a place to park my cars and have storage.
Sure. We understand that. You've made that clear in your
Okay.
proposal. Any other comments or questions? Yes, sir.
I'm Brendan Sullivan. The house does look pretty bad right now because it needs siding. It's gonna have the same siding as the garage. And the same roof, everything, and new windows and doors. So by the time we get done, it'll probably be one of the better looking houses in the neighborhood.
Okay.
I can't see any reason not to be able to build a garage.
Okay, thank you. You had some other comment?
I do. First of all, this is not their primary residence.
It will be.
The primary
As we move
residence
there, it will
this
be.
time, it's my turn.
Your turn, you already had your turn.
And they called me, sit down. Their primary residence is at 300 North D Street.
307.
They have a story and a half there. They have a garage, they have yard. Why can't they build this monstrosity there? Why are they asking for a variance where a house is non-inhabitable, bigger than anything that's on the street? And I'd like to clarify, they don't have a basement, well, neither do our people. My parents and Amanda's grandma, they have basements, but because of the way the land lays, our basements are always flooded with water.
Still have.
So they've never been able to be finished. In fact, my mom and dad's needs to be repaired because 3 of the 4 walls now have
split.
I will say on city code, it might have my grandma's, because at one point it was finished when we moved in. Due to sump pump issues and a large flood and everything else, which then she has a washer and dryer down there that she doesn't use. It's currently in the process of being moved upstairs because of flooding this year again.
And as far as the small garage, my mom and dad have a small garage, but they can fit their car in it. They can fit their riding mower in it. They can fit their push mower in it. And there's a workbench in it. I mean, and there's rafters. So the only people that have a lot of garages are the people next door to my mom and dad. And that was Mr. Dickerson lived there. And that was kind of all before, there's not even records on those garages at this point, but they're not bigger than the house. They're not higher than the house.
They're part of the house. I will also say, I think our biggest issue is that the size of the garage. It's not no to a garage. It is, this garage is encompassing a yard that is not used right now or anything else. And we're just concerned it's going to just be left to sit. And then there's already been vandalism around. There's already, in my opinion, it's gonna cause property taxes to increase in the area. It's gonna cause insurance to increase in the area, and it's, it's kind of like a pool or whatever and everything else with insurance where it says, oh, this is like a public issue. Like if you have a pool in your yard, you have to have a fence because it could come drown. Like if it's just left, then we're the ones kind of holding. I mean, I literally live across the street and you can, if it's that large, you can see it from across the street the other way. Maybe not from the front of the house, but from behind the house, you can see. So,
Okay, thank you.
So, and just one other thing, they've had, since this woman's died, to do something with this house. How can we trust what they're saying?
Not our criteria for today. Our criteria is what's here today,
Okay.
but thank you.
Thank you. Call the question, please.
Property.
We ready to make a motion?
Sure. I move to approve the variance at 106 East Salem Avenue.
Call the vote, please.
And if you guys want to have any discussion or anything before we do that. So.
In my discussion, and I have one more question. You said something about Salem. On Ashland, is there an issue you said because it would be seen from, say, it could, if it was 900 square feet, it could sit on that lot even though it was seen from the other street, correct?
It would be visible from East Detroit Avenue. Well, I guess.
It's not in anyone's front yard, so
I
yeah.
was gonna say Detroit's far away.
Yeah, it's Ashland or Salem.
East Salem. I'm thinking of the last.
It really isn't. Wow.
Yeah, and I mean, that's all you, yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
and-
okay.
And just, I want to clarify a few things here. So our accessory building code, and I'll try to explain this as best as I can. And I know it makes a lot of sense to us because we deal with it every day. So if this doesn't make sense, please let me know. But we require, first of all, that the height and the size of the accessory structure cannot exceed that of the principal structure. So that's step one. Step two, if you can meet all of that, you are allowed up to 24 feet in height and up to 1,800 square feet in total square foot. So that's if, both of those can still be met, plus it's not bigger than those two. The other thing is to note on this particular one that even though you can't be tall or you can't have more square footage than the principal structure, you're still allowed at the very minimum to have 600 square feet of garage. So I know that doesn't apply to this one, but let's say the house is only 500 square feet, our code would still say, but you're still allowed a 600 square foot garage. So just a few things to note on how that code works out. There's a lot of moving pieces to it to kind of fit every property, but ultimately that's why this request is here today, is just because it, if the house was 1,800 square feet and if it was a 2-story house, I know we're a little bit over the square footage total on the request, but if we could get that down, this wouldn't even be here.
Sure.
And assuming the lot size was, yeah.
Call the vote, please.
Bash,
No.
Hoover,
No.
Wayland,
No.
I'd like to speak about something here. First of all, there are criteria. We've talked about this a little bit. It feels to me that the proposal that we've looked at was probably to the extreme. And that there are probably creative solutions that might create more of a win-win situation for you as well. And I would encourage you to look at those standards. And we are flexible. We're willing to look at things that I think make sense and don't feel excessive to anybody. And I'm right in saying that they can come back with another proposal, am I right? So you may want to look at this very closely. You've heard what our concerns are in terms of the limitations. And you're right, you have a very small house, which kind of works against you. However, we're not going to just say it must be that many feet. I think if you could come up with a solution that doesn't feel as though it's excessive, that it makes perfect sense. And you heard one example from Charlie already talking about if there was a limitation on the size of the garage, we would be flexible about those sorts of things. I think that would be very wise for you to consider and to come back to us with something that doesn't feel so excessive.
That would be great, but my question to you would be again, would it be that then I have to apply again and pay another fee? Because that's kind of why, what I was asking is, didn't have to be, I was going off
We
1,824,
we can work through all that stuff.
okay.
Yeah.
Cause yeah, I went off of what they said,
Okay,
this variance to this one,
we understand.
okay.
And you've heard Charlie say, we can work with you, okay?
Okay, because yeah, we're, like I said, we're just trying to get a garage.
Yes?
Well, I just have a question. How do we as neighbors, Charlie, what should we do about this uninhabitable house in this process? Yeah,
I mean, it's just vacant right now, right?
it's been vacant for
Yeah,
years.
I mean, as long as it's not, as long as there's not any issues with the vacant structure and that there's not any property maintenance issues.
There's windows missing and boards up in them.
Yeah, I mean, if there's windows missing and there's, well, I mean, if they're boarded up though, there's really.
They're
no
not
issues about that.
completely boarded up, they're
We-
just
Yeah,
boards
we
sitting
can
there.
talk more about that, but I mean, you could file a complaint, we could take a look at it a little
Okay.
more in depth.
Come on over, because every window's there, they're boarded so they can't look in.
Sure, sure,
You're being silly.
No, I'm not.
sure.
I was just there and mowed the yard today.
I know you
We
were.
go every week, we're there twice a week and check on things, so whatever.
And we heard your reassurance that your intentions are to build it, to fix this up so that it looks highly presentable. And so that would be something to consider as well.
And probably I should have gave these two a letter, but I didn't know they were coming. The letter I wrote to these people said, they have a house. What's my letter say? Read the letter to her,
I did.
please.
Oh, I don't need to understand it. The point is nobody's living there now and nobody has lived there and it's sat empty. And you want to put this big structure on there. But if you wanted to live in a house, you'd already done it.
You guys could use that.
Thank you,
Yeah, you
thank
can-
you, thank
You're
you.
welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, you guys. Charlie, I know I'm driving you
No,
crazy.
fine, we gotta get going.
Okay.
So that's what we have to do still. I'm thinking seriously about resigning as chair. Except we haven't seen anything like this before. That's all. The only reason I'm saying
But I
that.
do think there is, I mean, that was to extreme, but on the size of the building, but I think the city needs to continually get out and explain to people accessory buildings and the size that is appropriate within neighborhoods, because that's the Morton building.
Yeah.
No, you're right.
We have some big lots.
Semi is 14 feet high. That's two semis. Oh, no.
Anyways.
Comments? I move we adjourn.
I have a comment. I want to say, first of all, I reflect on the fact that we are very fortunate with our staff. And I'm not sure we always say that, you prepare all this stuff for us, you make us look a lot better than we would otherwise. Your presentations, Emily, I think are sterling. They were really helpful today. It was a lot of complication and it really helped put things together. And so I was thinking about that and wanted to say thank you. So,
We appreciate that too, and Did you want to say anything else? Go.
Well, and I guess to give credit to, so Kristen Haas is our planning intern. She actually worked on the Wicked staff report. That was her first staff report that she's done with us. So to give
Won't forget that one for a long time.
definitely not.
Yeah.
And this is her first public meeting
Yeah.
too, so.
So, and that's, I wanted to touch on that on the staffing side. First of all, Kristen is our intern this summer. If you're, so thank you, Kristen, for your help. She's been here now for, gosh, 3 weeks, 4 weeks now?
3.5-ish.
Okay, it seems like it's been a long time. so-
Yesterday.
Yeah, if you're not aware, Miranda has left the city. She's here kind of on call right now for this week. But she is the new emergency management coordinator for Warren County, so she has moved on to another position. But
Congratulations.
in her spot is Tara now, Fostetter, right? That's how you say your last name. I've never, yeah. So Tara just started on Monday, so Miranda's kind of come back this week to help train Tara and has been an asset in that process because if there's one thing I hate doing, it's training people. So Miranda's done a really good job of that, but Tara's gonna be running these meetings, so just please help me in reassuring Tara that what happened tonight is not the normal, so.
Well, I can't really speak because I've only been here a few months. I was like,
Still streaming?
Yeah. So we can adjourn, stop streaming and talk more.
Okay, thank you, Jan.